welcome in everybody, wherever you are, however you may be listening. This is your weekly Pick'em show as we head into week 12. And of course, we have a great guest with us this week. Coach around the NFL and college for more than 30 years. You've seen us on shows together numerous times. And of course, every Wednesday on the Coach's Corner, the one and only Coach John Bonamego. How's it going, man?
Well, thanks for the introduction, Bo, and great to see you, and thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to talk about this week's matchups.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, you have a unique picking system, right? So, I mean, you know, it's funny because we talk about it on other shows, and you have analytics that you use. I use an eye test, and a lot of times our lists are pretty close.
Yep.
So I'll be curious to see kind of where it is we end up. A lot of them, I would imagine, will be, you know, pretty similar, but there's a few of them that are kind of coin flips that I think could probably go either way. Generally what I want to start the show with is the ones that I missed from last week. And I never talk about the ones that I hit because the ones that I miss are always the ones that leave me scratching my head a little bit. Went 11-3 last week, so not bad. Still sitting in sixth, though. That puts me 109-47 on the year. I missed the Baltimore-Pittsburgh game. I really thought that the Ravens could win that game, and they could have, right? You know, Pittsburgh winning with 6 field goals shouldn't happen. I missed the Colts-Jets game. I thought the Jets might actually win a game. And then Seattle-San Fran, I did take San Fran in that game, and Seattle showed out, making the West, you know, a little more interesting.
Yeah, that was, you know, I was with you on 2 of those. Look, the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, I went against my formula. I went with Baltimore and lost that one. Otherwise, I would have been 12-2 on the week. The other one that we shared was, you know, I also took San Francisco, and you know, we know how that ended up. And then my other one this week was I took Green Bay to cover against the Bears, and they needed a blocked field goal at the end to win by 2. So, you know, chose the right team, but didn't cover the spread. So, you know, I'm 11-3 off the year. I don't know what my yearly stats are. Probably not as good as yours, but
you know, it's funny because I'm actually in a very similar spot that I was last year when I won. And this year I'm sitting 6th with almost the same numbers. So, I mean, kudos to the people in the championship this year. They're doing work. And I think it's the top 8 spots are divided by 4 games.
Wow.
So, I mean, like it is a tight competition at the top.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, it's been a really, like usually there's separation, right? It's kind of like the NFL. Usually by like week 10 to 12, the divisions are getting spread out a little bit, right? Like you're kind of seeing the teams that are for real and the ones that are pretty much starting to look for next year. Mm-hmm. And the championship usually kind of mirrors that a little bit. Usually have 4 or 5 people that are kind of starting to pull away, and this year just not so much.
Tighter race.
Absolutely. Which is fun, right? Because it means that every game really matters. So it's, although, you know, a little frustrating to be out of the top 5. I was really trying for that 3-peat on the championship.
Of course you were. You wouldn't be playing if you weren't playing to win. So.
That's right. So speaking of games that aren't what they should be, we get to kick it off with Thursday Night Football.
Right.
And the Steelers versus the Browns. Early in the year, you thought that might actually be an entertaining game because the Browns were supposed to be better than they are, and the Steelers were supposed to be worse than they are, right? So it seemed like it was going to be a good matchup. You know, it's 8-2 versus 2-8. The Steelers are favored by 3.5, over under 37. 97% of America taking the Steelers in this game. I am also taking the Steelers in this game. The Browns are terrible. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
if they win another game the way they're put together.
It depends on which Jameis shows up for the game. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They're when he has a good game, they're a competitive team. When he doesn't, then obviously they're not as good. But I like Pittsburgh as well. I was a little bit surprised how close the line is on that. I mean, I would imagine part of that might have to do with them, playing on the road midweek. So,
Yeah.
it'll
Well,
be,
and the weather's supposed to be bad.
yeah, and I hope it is that close to the game, because then it'll be an entertaining game, at least.
Exactly. Yeah, if it could not be a blowout or just a terrible game would be awesome. Since it's Thursday, I just assume it's going to be bad.
Yeah. Just looking at the third phase, the Steelers are playing really well on special teams. Cleveland, not as much. Although I do think that Bubba Ventrone, that coaches them, does as good a job as anybody. Does a really good job. But that's an area to watch, and that could very well be the difference in the game, especially if it's a weather game.
Yeah. I mean, from what I was hearing, there might be snow, and if that's the case, then it could be an interesting game, especially since neither team can figure out how to punch the ball in the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, now if you're playing fantasy and you have the Steelers kicker, you are loving it, right? Had 6 last week, I think 5 the week before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's putting up points for you.
Well, Pittsburgh, look, you might not notice it off the get-go, but quietly, right? They're top 10 in rushing yards per game. So I think when the weather gets started, when things get colder, windy, the footing isn't as good. The teams that can move the ball on the ground have a distinct advantage, I think. And you contrast that with Cleveland. They're near the bottom. They're 29th in rushing. So, we'll see what happens.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's. I mean, I don't get why they're so bad, because you look at the roster and they should be a much better team than they are.
Right. Well, I think you can chalk a lot of that up to quarterback play. It's not been good this year. And I think Pittsburgh, on the other hand, I think it's been a lot better than people maybe would have anticipated going into the season.
Oh, no question. Like they're far better than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be a middling team, right? Kind of right around that 8 or 9 win, probably 9 win, because it's Tomlin and somehow he just never gets that losing season. But that's kind of what I thought this team would be. And, obviously for them to only be 9, they'd really have to start losing a lot.
Right. Well, what they've figured out and what they've done a good job there is they've done a good job of taking care of the ball and finding ways to take it away from the offense. They're number 2 in turnover margin, which is, to me, that's the most important stat in football. And then again, you look at Cleveland, they sit at 23rd, not doing very, they're on the minus end of that turnover ratio. So,
Well, I mean, the only unit that's good is defense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only thing they're doing well. So, that negative number, I think you have more to do with the offense being terrible than the defense not getting turnovers.
Right. Absolutely. Agreed.
So we got another awesome game to kick off the Sunday morning games. Is KC going into the Panthers. KC is an 11-point favorite. I feel like that number isn't high enough. They are 99% of people taking KC. That 1% must be Tepper, right? Tepper voted.
Yeah.
That's the only. I would bet people on the team don't think they can win. Over under a 43. That one, you almost want to take the over just because I think KC can put up 43.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't typically, pay attention to that part of it. I'm full disclosure, I'm not a gambler. This is just something I do for fun. But I think Kansas City, especially coming off a loss, that's an organization that's got a lot of pride. Never underestimate the heart of a champion. I see them going into Charlotte and taking care of business. On Sunday. I don't think it'll be a close game.
Yeah, me either. Yeah. No, I think they cover. Like, I think it's more than 2 scores. Like, I think they beat the brakes off the Panthers.
I agree. That's how I see that one as well.
So then we have the Vikings at the Bears, obviously a divisional game, so that adds an element to it. Vikings are a 3.5-point favorite, over under 39. 91% of people taking the Vikings here, 8-2 versus 4-6. The Bears, to me, feel like a team that's really falling apart. Like, even though the roster isn't bad, like, there's a lot of elements of this team that are starting to fracture. And I think that hurts them in this game. Even though it's a home game for them, I do like the Vikings here.
I do too. Agree with you on the Bears. The one thing about Minnesota, watch them or see them play live against Jacksonville, and man, they did not have a good day. They won the game, but Darnold was, he turned the ball over a ton that day. So he was a lot better this past week, and overall he's been, I think he's been really good throughout the season. But maybe a little bit, dome team playing on grass. I think that could, come into play here. But certainly if the Vikings play the way they're capable of, take care of business, I see them winning that game. But, I think the Bears have a little bit of fight left in them. It'll be interesting to see this. It'll be a second week with Thomas Brown calling the plays. From what I was able to glean off some of the things I read, I think the plays were getting in a little bit more timely. They're trying to just focus on the details, not necessarily overhauling the entire offense. This will be a good, it'll be a good test for the Bears. Find out if they do have a little bit of life in them. But I think it's Minnesota's game for the taking.
Yeah, I mean, for Bears fans, you hope that they can kind of figure something out. Because again, like, the roster isn't bad. The offensive line is, but the roster isn't bad. So, I mean, they should be able to play better than they have been. Obviously, the game against Green Bay was a nail biter and comes down to, blocked kick. But I still think they should be better than they're playing. But now you're starting to hear players complaining about each other openly, right? So it's no longer just hidden in the locker room. Like, all of a sudden it's out in public. And that's where things start to fall apart.
Yeah, so, I think when it's out there, in the media, there's a lot of speculation about Matt Eberflus, and his job status or job security. When that permeates into the locker room, it can do one. It can galvanize you if that head coach really has the respect and command of the team. If he doesn't, or if there's any cracks, then it will fracture a team. So, that'll be on full display for everybody to see here this weekend.
Oh, no question. And, Darnold having a bad game, I don't worry about too much. It seems like everybody's had a clunker this year where they've thrown multiple picks. And, I mean, you watched Goff do it. You've seen Stafford do it. I mean, everybody's seen, right? Mahomes has done it. Everybody's had that game. Josh Allen hasn't yet, which is weird because he actually turns the ball over quite a bit. But yeah, I mean, everybody else has kind of had that clunker. So I didn't read too much into it. That was a terrible game, though.
Yeah,
that was like 12.
The wild factor. The wild factor there. Time of year going into Chicago, I mean, that place gets windy, and the wind patterns are very, very unpredictable there. And the surface, that's not a good surface. I'd say, it's grass, so it's not dangerous, but it's, I'm not sure the Bears even maintain it. I think it's maintained by the city. It's not. It's just not a. It gets really slick. That could be a really tough place to play late in the year. Where you're getting into November and December. Now it's a divisional game. The Vikings are well aware of that. It's a place that they play every year, so they shouldn't get caught off guard in terms of not being in the right shoes and that sort of thing. But look, those are real factors that affect affect your ability. It affects or can have effect on how you call a game offensively. Defensively, it can lead to more missed tackles and that sort of thing. So especially a dome team, going out and playing, out there on grass. And that's one of the reasons why I did reference the Jaguar game, because it is recent and it was on grass outdoors in a little bit of wind. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, they definitely need to be bringing the long spikes. There's no doubt.
Yep. Without, on that field for sure.
Yeah, no, it's always a bummer if you forget them. I remember playing one where I didn't bring both bags of spikes, so I had long spikes on one cleat and not on the other. I was like, I just make sure that all of my cuts with the 1 foot really were where I wanted to plant. All right, so then another morning game. We have a lot of these are going to be kind of lopsided. This one is the Titans going into the Texans. Now, the Titans do have a pretty solid defense. Texans are 8-point favorites at home here, over under 40.5, 99% on the Texans. I am also going that direction. I don't think the Titans have anything to offer outside of their defense. The offense can't really seem to move the ball very well. And, you had Levis, and then they bench him for why am I mind blanking? Former Steeler.
I'm blanking too.
Man. Wow.
Was it?
Parsons swung the helmet at him.
Mason Rudolph.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, why am I mind blanking this?
Yeah.
So, they bench Levis, they have Rudolph start, and then Rudolph gets hurt. Levis is back in there. There's just no continuity on the offensive side of the ball. So even though the defense is good, they're going to spend all day out there. And ultimately, I think the Texans get this win.
Yeah. The other phase again with that is the Titans have been, they've been bad on special teams this year. They've had a lot of issues, and really going back to the year before, they had made a coordinator change midway through the year in Vrabel's last year. So they still have issues there that that they've got to overcome. Houston is a team that can really hurt you quickly in that area. They do a very good job there, and have got good special teams personnel. I also am going with the Houston Texans. I don't think this will be a close game at all. I think they should win this one handily.
The next one is kind of interesting in the way of the Lions going into Indy. 7.5-point favorites for the Lions, 50.5 is the over-under, 98% on the Lions. I'm definitely going Lions here. The Colts have shown some fight, though. And so I think it could be interesting. That being said, the Lions have just been absolutely destroying everybody in front of them. I don't imagine this is going to be any different.
Yeah, I think Detroit's win last week over Jacksonville was one of the more impressive performances I've seen in a very long time. The reason I say that is just how methodically they went about their business. When you're, one of the things you always worry about as a coach is the trap games, and we see it every week, teams play down or up or down to their competition, right? So but you didn't see any of that in Detroit. They came out firing, and they really carried that momentum throughout the entire game. I think they scored on every single drive, and they really put on a clinic offensively, and they, again, they just smothered Jacksonville's defensively as well. So, they're playing like a team that has that's going someplace. Campbell's got everybody bought in. They're believing it, and they cover easily. And again, barring any weird thing is happening, I think they win that game. Now, look, Indy playing at home. Look, they've got good fans. If they can hang in there early and get that crowd in it, they can make it a game. But I still think Detroit wins this one.
Yeah, well, and I mean, if you're winning games, even when you have a 5 interception game, I mean, man, who's beating you?
Yeah.
And then talk about persevering, right? Goff comes out the next week, throws 4 touchdowns, has a perfect passer rating with like 100 yards. I mean, talk about being like, oh, you know what? That was an aberration. That's not what we are. So awesome for Goff. Like, I still don't think it helps him win an MVP, but I mean, it puts him back in the conversation.
For sure. And you know what? He'll probably take a Super Bowl over MVP anyways. I mean, I know he would.
Oh yeah. Oh, always, right? Like you take the ultimate prize over any personal accolade every time.
For sure. You better.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're in the wrong sport.
Yep.
Now this one could be interesting. We got the Patriots at the Dolphins. Dolphins are 7.5-point favorites. Over under 46. 94% of people on the Dolphins here. I like the Dolphins. But I do like what the Patriots are doing. Like they play good defense. They've taken care of the ball relatively well. And, the rookie's been playing decent, right? Like, yeah, I like what May is doing. You don't expect him to win, but you expect him to give them, a game.
Mm-hmm.
So this should be a fun watch. I do think the Dolphins win here, but the Patriots will make it more interesting than they probably should.
I agree. And this one, I see this could be a really tight game. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm taking Miami, but wouldn't be surprised at all to see New England cover here. Mm-hmm. What you want to see with New England, if you're New England, you want to see them making progress. I think they're doing that now with May. He seems to be getting better and better each week out. That team's, Mayo's starting to form that team in how he sees it, with his culture. I think, obviously there's a lot of remnants of the Patriot way, but he's putting his flair on things. And, I see them as a team that's improving. And I think they're doing a good job.
Yeah, I definitely like the evolution as the year's gone on, right? Like Mayo looks like he's not over his head.
No, I agree. I agree. I totally agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, no, like he's been good at some game management situations, clock management. Like it's been impressive because in the beginning of the season, you're just like, man, right. I don't know. And then really kind of as you've started to get things going, you're like, okay, no, it looks like he is embracing the role. And the stage isn't too big, right? Like it seems like he's really kind of fitting into what it is he wants. And to your point, there are definitely elements of the Patriot way, but that's also the system he came up in. Sure. So I mean, it totally makes sense for that.
Yep.
All right. So now this one, this is just going to be a terrible game. So we have the Bucks going into Jersey to play the Giants. Bucks are a 6-point favorite on the road here, over under 41.5. 95% of people on the Bucks. 4-6 versus 2-8. Like, this is not going to be a fun game. The Giants are about to get hammered, because that, if there was ever a team that's being fractured, it's that one right now. And the Bucks have a lot of fight despite not having their complement of weapons. I mean, they're out there battling every week. They gave, KC everything they could handle. I like the Bucks. I think it's just going to be a sloppy game overall, though.
Yeah, I don't know how sloppy it'll be, but I like Tampa Bay as well. I think Baker Mayfield's playing his best football. They are a very, very scrappy team. I think they're a lot better team than their record indicates.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they're on a mission, and they're, this is everything for them is, they expect to be in the playoffs. They were in the playoffs last year. Every game for them really is a must win. So, I see them coming off the bye week, rested up. You get Mike Evans back. I see them going up and taking care of business in New York, and and using that to spring them forward, because I do think that they're not a team that no matter how good you are, you can look past. I mean, they showed everybody that in that, you think about that, they're a coin flip away from beating Kansas City. That game goes to overtime. You knew it on Baker's face when they lost the coin toss and Mahomes
Yes.
said, "We want the ball," because if you're playing Kansas City and you take them to overtime, you want the ball and a chance to go down and end it. And but that's how close the league is. But I think that shows you what Tampa Bay has in them too. And they were down several players in that game.
Yeah. I mean, they should have lost handily when you look at roster to roster.
Right.
So that's what I love about this Tampa team is they're out there fighting every play.
Yep.
And so that's great to watch.
Yep. And look, they're going to be prepared, and they're going to do a good job with Todd, on defense. I love what Liam Cohen's brought to that offense. He obviously had a relationship with Baker, prior. They had worked together in LA. And so there was some familiarity there. And, I think Liam's done a really good job there. And there's some challenging situations.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, do you even think the Giants win another game? Obviously, they have like the weirdest situation because Drew Lock was their number 2, and then they bench Daniel Jones because they don't want him to get hurt. They're going to move on from him. That's obvious. And then they elevate DeVito ahead of Lock, but they did it like 5 minutes before they had to talk to the press. So, I mean, that was mishandled about as much as it could be. And then they sign another quarterback. So that makes Daniel Jones the 4th string. That makes Drew Lock potentially the 3rd, because they don't want to pay him the incentives on his contract. So, I mean, I just feel like they're in a bad situation, and then they're compounding it by making bad decisions at bad times.
Yeah. I mean, look, those are, they're in a tough spot, and I may be in the minority in saying this. I'm sure I probably am. But I think Brian Dable's a really good football coach. Now, granted, last season, this season, I hear it. I get it. But, look what he did in Buffalo with Josh Allen. I think the guy's had success everywhere he's been. He's super smart. But sometimes it doesn't work out. Things don't mesh, I whether or not they win another game or not this year, I hope they do. I think it's a better league when the Giants are good. I think.
Yeah, but do you think they're tanking? Yeah, I mean, do you think they're now looking at this draft? Because there's only 2 real quarterbacks that are going to be first rounders.
Yeah, I mean they could be, I mean, although I wouldn't frame it as tanking, but maybe like looking towards the future. The only way they do that, the only way, Brian Dable does that is if he's got some assurance that he'll be
Yeah.
back the next year, right? And
Yeah.
which I thought I saw something where someone reported that the Maras had come out and said that they're not going to make a change. So, and look, if you're going to go get a quarterback, right, it's good. I think Brian Dable is a guy that you want as your head coach. We talked about that with Chicago. They end up moving on from Eberflus. They wasted an opportunity a year ago to go get somebody especially if they knew they were going to take a quarterback. So, if that's the case, yeah, they're, I don't think teams tank, but you're gonna look at some players that you're gonna take a harder look at some younger guys on your roster just to try to, because the only way you're gonna find out what you really have with those players is to get them in a game. Okay. You're gonna have to make decisions on a lot of them, before you get before training camp for the following year. So.
I don't think players don't tank, right?
Right.
Because they have contracts that dictate that they don't do that.
Right.
They generally have incentive stuff like that. But as the people running the show, you can tank without saying you're tanking, right? Because you're just like, I want to check out this fourth stringer over here that is going to not perform well. Sure. And you're just like, oh yeah, no, we were evaluating talent. It's like, no, you were scheduling a loss. Like and
you're right. I think, look, in my 20 years, look, I never was, I was never privy to any of those any of those discussions. You're always focused on just the next game and what you have to do to get your guys ready and, trying to figure out a way to win. But, if those discussions are happening, they're at the highest level. And so everybody's bought in, right? The GM, the owner, head coach. And
that's probably the group, right? That's a closed door meeting between those three guys. Like if you're agreeing to go out and tank.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's probably the owner and the GM. And then the GM goes in and tells the head coach, hey, you need to, we need to play these guys. We need to get these guys on the field. We need to get them in a, whatever rotation, or if it's somebody that hasn't been activated, which likely it is, then, hey, they're going to be active this week. Figure out who you're going to sit and, come up with a plan for how you're going to use these guys.
So. Yeah, I imagine when those conversations come through, there's also the assurances of, hey, we're going to do this and you're not getting fired.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd be like, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah. I just not, I don't think there's ever a time where teams tank in the, what I think of as the definition of tanking, where like, they don't like, the objective is always to win. Now, has it happened? Questionably, probably most recently, everybody points at Philly.
Sure.
That's one that the Giants fans are still upset about, right? But and understandably so. But I think that those are very, very rare occurrences, truly.
Yeah.
Well, but to your point, it's like, hey, we don't, because the reference, we're going to find it. We don't really know 100% whether these personnel moves are going to help us or hurt us. And they could very well hurt us in the short term, but the benefit long-term is what we're working towards. So that's,
getting a better draft pick helps that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, and agreed. Like you're never actively like tanking. You're not out there trying to lose, right? But you can set yourself up in an unfavorable way, right? Like your guys are still out there trying to win. You're still coaching to win. But if you have your main guys not playing anymore, you're like, oh yeah, we want to see this third stringer, whatever. It's like, yeah, you might win, but the odds go way down. All right.
No
So
doubt.
now we got the final morning game. We got Cowboys at Washington. Not going to be a great game. Washington is a 10.5-point favorite here. Over under of 45, 98% on Washington. This is another team in the Cowboys that I'm not sure they win another game. They that's a locker room that also doesn't seem like they're in a good spot. They got a coach that's on his way out. There's a lot to not like about this team. Obviously, Dak's out for the year. You don't really know if Rush is going to take that step forward or if they're going to give Lance more touches because it's their last year with him on the roster. This is a team that definitely feels like it's falling apart. That 10.5 may not even be enough.
Yeah, I mean, I see Washington handling this game, and I agree with you. I mean, Dallas could, with all the promise and everything at the beginning of the season, where they are right now, it just doesn't look good. Now, that said, any team can jump up and surprise somebody at any given time. So, I haven't looked at who they have left. They could not win a game, but you never know.
So I think their best shot that's coming up, I think they play the Giants one more time. So they probably win that game. But otherwise, I mean,
yeah.
All right. And then before we get into the afternoon games, we got the if you are into sports betting, you can do it right alongside the show here using the QR code on the screen, 125% of your first 3 deposits. And there is a 10% bet guarantee. If you happen to be bad at it, you get some of that money back. But use the QR code on the screen, bet right alongside us here on our Pick'em show. And then, of course, if you are in the Pacific Northwest, use the QR code right here. Get a free 5-day pass at any of the 3 locations of True Fusion Gym, whether it's Bellevue, Ballard, or University Village. Pilates, boot camp, yoga, hot bar. Find your edge at True Fusion Gym. All right.
Well done.
Thank you much. All right, so we got the afternoon games. This one, again, probably a lopsided affair. We got the Broncos heading into Vegas. Broncos are a 6-point favorite on the road, over under 41, 97% on the Broncos. I am also on the Broncos. The Raiders are probably done for the year.
Yeah, I agree. I like Denver on this one as well. Again, I see them covering, maybe even extending out that lead. So,
yeah, well, I mean, their offense is really starting to come together, and the defense has been fantastic. Right? Like they're ranked second in just about everything. Yeah. So like they're a great defense. The offense was lackluster heading up, but I mean, man, they look like a real team now.
Yeah. And let's go back to the point, we keep beating this up. You have a rookie quarterback who's gotten better every single week.
Yep.
And he's playing for a guy that is a quarterback guy in Sean Payton, right?
Yep.
So again, it makes a big difference. It just makes a huge difference. And, I love what they're doing with him. You can see that they're Sean Payton, Joe Lombardi, they're just putting a little bit more on his plate week in and week out, but it's still, not asking him to do too much and not asking him to, play, as you like to say, Bo, hero ball. I haven't seen that. So, again, Broncos a team to keep an eye on. They're in the thick of it, and they just keep, that kid just keeps getting better and better each week.
Well, and I think his arm talent might have been undervalued coming in. Right. Because it was a knock on him. They're like, oh, he can move around really well, but, may not be able to hit all the passes. Mm-hmm. And it sure looks like he throws the ball better than maybe what people were giving him credit for.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't, from what I'd seen of him, I didn't think that arm strength or arm talent was going to be an issue. It might not be elite, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's that. I mean, obviously we got to see him, because he was playing for Oregon,
Mhm.
but it was one of those. He won a lot of plays because of his legs, like he was able
Yeah,
to move around,
yeah,
and so there were some passes that you were maybe questioning on whether or not he could hit. That now that he's made it to the league, he's obviously not running as much because he'd get murdered. But them guys are big and fast, so he's having to make some of those throws that maybe he didn't have to with Oregon, and he's been able to. So it's been good. Sean Payton looks like he found his guy.
yeah. I would say I think that's a good find. Again, anytime you take a rookie quarterback, you're always rolling the dice. But and especially if you need to play and are going to play them early, uh, looks to me like the Denver Broncos have made all the right choices so far this year with this guy.
Absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, you're right. Dallas does play the Giants next week. That is one of the Thanksgiving games. Going to be a terrible game. And you can get tickets right now for $40.
Wow.
So even the scalpers are like, you know what? Maybe we'll just give these tickets away. I would expect to see a lot of empty seats in that building.
Yeah.
But all right, we got this one should actually be a really good game. So we finally have one that leaves you kind of questioning which side to go. You got San Francisco heading into Green Bay. Green Bay is only a 2-point favorite. Over under 47.5. 66% of people on Green Bay. I actually kind of like San Fran here.
I can see why. I'm going with it with Green Bay just because it's at home. But gosh, this will be this is it's the teacher and the pupil. I mean, another matchup. I mean, so no with Lafleur and Kubiak, right? Or not Kubiak? I'm sorry. our guy in San Fran, but yeah, it'll be this will be a good game. I think this one will come down to this one truly will be who takes care of the football. But again, Green Bay right now, I've got them on my special teams ranking. They're bottom half, but gosh, the Niners special teams I have them dead last. So that could be a difference in the game. Again, playing outdoors on grass. Green Bay special teams came up with a big play last week with the blocking the game-winning field goal against the Bears. So that's that, and being at home. I give the edge a little bit to Green Bay, but both teams are hungry. Both teams have a lot to play for, and they're two teams that, even though they're not in the same division, I think are very familiar with one another. They know each other really well.
Yeah, well, Green Bay, for whatever reason, one of their floating games tends to be the NFC West, because the Hawks play them a fair amount. And so, yeah, it's not an in-division game, but it is one that ends up on our schedules a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know why I was drawing a blank on Kyle Shanahan earlier a few minutes ago, but I apologize to everybody for that. But
it happens.
Hey.
I mean, I couldn't think of Mason Rudolph at the top of the show. So,
well, that's a little bit more. That's a little bit more understandable than forgetting Kyle Shanahan. So
I mean, okay, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I mean, so Green Bay, obviously,
and look, Steve-O just brought up a great point. Salah's in Green Bay again. Those guys are all on staff with Kyle, but Salah most recently, defensive guy. Understands that the Packers should be very well prepared.
Yeah, well, and their defense has been good.
And Steve-O, that's a great point, and thanks for commenting on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and the reason I like San Fran here is because if they lose this game, it all but ends their season, right? Because there's not a wild card coming out of the West.
No. Yeah.
So I mean, you either win or you're done.
Yeah.
And if they drop this game, they have some work to do to try and win. So I think it's one of those where they need it more than Green Bay does. So
yes.
But yeah, I mean this one's a coin flip, so I like this game. Should be a fun watch. I took San Fran. I don't feel confident about it. Like I wouldn't put money on it. We'll put it that way. Another game that is just like that is the Cardinals headed here to Seattle. Cardinals are a 1-point favorite on the road, over under 47.5. America is completely split on this. It's a 50-50 split. I'm going to, I guess, lean the homer route because neither one of these teams are complete, right? So I will go with Seattle at home. Another one that they need. Plus, it just makes the West very interesting because there's a potential that at the end of the weekend, everybody could have the same record.
There's no doubt. That's an important game for both teams. I like Arizona here. I just think that, they've started to find themselves a little bit. I think they're kind of gaining a little momentum here down the last 4 games or so. I think Murray's playing well. That's just, with my formula, with my stats, that's who I've got him. But I agree. I think, the line reflects how closely this is. So it's going to be a good game and one that I'm looking forward to watch.
Absolutely. And then, of course, Sunday Night Football. Got Eagles at the Rams. Eagles are a 3-point favorite on the road, over under 49. 84% of people on the Eagles. I also have the Eagles here. That'll essentially be a home game for them. Not a lot of Rams fans actually end up in the stadium. Plus, the Rams have been so inconsistent that they have games where they look fantastic, and then they have games that you wonder if they've ever played football before. You have the Eagles that have quietly gotten better kind of as each week has gone, in spite of some questionable play calling. The offense has really come together and the defense has gotten better as the year's gone on.
Yeah, I like Philly as well in this matchup. I think that the Rams, Philly's playing really well on defense. I think McVay will figure out a way to move the ball and score some points. But at the end, I just don't think that the Rams are good enough on defense. I see, Philly being able to move the ball on the ground at will against them. And then, I think if they can run the ball and then get play action, I think it'll open things up. So I like Philly in this matchup.
Absolutely. It's funny. I was reading a thing this morning that the online version of Madden added the backwards hurdle to the game, which is hilarious. All right. And then we have the Monday night game. And this is probably actually one of the best games of the week, if not the best game of the week. Ravens at the Chargers. Ravens 3-point favorite on the road, over under a 51. Only 66% on the Ravens here. I'm actually leaning Chargers, though. I like that Chargers defense. And for whatever reason, the Ravens can't seem to figure out how to keep giving Henry the ball. Their last loss, again, had him with 16 carries. I don't know why they're not seeing what everyone else sees, but hand that man the rock.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I like the Chargers here, so I'm taking them. My rationale is I think, the Chargers have been playing very disciplined. Here's why I say they're 4th in the league in penalties, so 4th fewest number of penalties. And Baltimore this year, for whatever reason, it's been uncharacteristic for a John Harbaugh team. They're dead last. Another area, that where Baltimore typically is dominant is special teams. I have them 27th right now in my ranking system. I've got the Chargers at 11th. At 11, Baltimore's flying all the way across to West Coast to play a Monday night game. That's a tough schedule. It'll be a great matchup, the Harbaugh Bowl. This is one where everybody wins. If you're a football fan, you're watching this game, you're a winner.
Yep.
So, but I like the Chargers here.
Well, especially when you look at the Ravens are dead last in pass defense. And, the Chargers move the ball through the air just fine. So This will be, like you said, the Harbaugh Bowl, like this will be great TV. And of course, the last time this happened was for a Super Bowl. John ends up with that win. So I think Jim gets this one.
We'll see. It'll be, I can't wait to watch that one.
Yeah, no, that is easily my game of the week. And of course, I think it's actually the only one where both teams have winning records, 7-4 versus 7-3. I think everybody else is either a winning record versus 500 or winning versus losing. I don't think it's actually not a great week when it comes to matchups overall, but Monday night will be an exciting game for sure.
Yeah, that's, it's an important game for both teams in regards to their, their divisional races and, wild cards. They're both of those teams are both sitting at number 2 in their division. So, I don't think anybody's catching I don't see the Chargers catching the Chiefs. So, their playoff chances could hinge on how they, whether or not they win this game this week or not.
No, absolutely. And uniquely for the Ravens, even if they lose this game, they have a real shot at catching the Steelers. Because
they do, but with Pitt, well, we'll know after tonight. If they, Ravens lose, they could go down 2 games in that, 2 games behind the Steelers. Yeah,
well, the only thing that's unique about the Steelers is they, until last week, hadn't played a divisional game.
Right. Okay.
So they have basically all of their division games to do.
Sure.
So there is a chance, even if the Ravens lose, not great, but there's at least a chance. But yeah, to your point, both these teams absolutely need it, and not just for something in their division, but really the wild card.
Right. I'm trying to see. So, yeah, so they still have to. We still get another Ravens-Steeler matchup. We still get one more. They've only played each other once. So you're right.
Yeah, well, because they got the Browns this week.
Correct.
And then, I forget exactly how it breaks out, but basically it was 6 of the last 8 games were all division games.
Right.
Which was kind of a crazy way to stack it. When you're 10 weeks in and you hadn't played a division game, it was very weird.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no doubt.
So yeah, I think the only ones we were different on were the
San Francisco, Green Bay. You took San Francisco. I've got the Packers, and then Arizona, Seattle. I've got the Cardinals, and you've got your hometown Seahawks.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see the eye test and the analytics still match up relatively well.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then, of course, just to go through them real quick, if you're watching along and want to know what my picks were, it was Steelers, Kansas City, Vikings, Texans, Lions, Dolphins, Bucks, Washington, Broncos, San Fran, Seattle, Eagles, and the Chargers. Hopefully there's, if you're playing along with us, you picked some that's a little bit different. But, I guess if you're ahead of me and you wanted to make sure you stayed ahead, you could pick exactly what I did, because those picks don't lock in till later today. One of those best offense is good defense, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, that does bring us to the top of the hour. Coach, let everybody know where they can find you.
Well, you can find me with Bo on Wednesday in Coach's Corner. You can usually catch both of us together on Inside the Pigskin on Tuesday nights. And then The only social media platform that I'm on that I by choice is LinkedIn. So you can find me on there as well. Thanks, Bo.
Absolutely. And thanks for coming on. We'll see you all next week. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody.
Thank you.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and